Hello, everyone. This is Lenard Guzman here with Emily Robinson on the Life After D podcast. It's June 14th, 2021, and we're here middle of, I guess, in LA. We're here in California. This is like kind of the start of just the summer that just doesn't end till like the end of the year.
It is hot. It's like 100 degrees today.
Yeah, so I don't know, like getting in the pool, like I guess, but then you get sunburn. I do. I turn red. I turn red anyway.
Me too.
So yeah. So let's see. What's going on here? I know kids are like getting out of school, vacations. Especially with people with different child custody schedules. I know leaving from LA to like Hawaii, a trip is like $300. So it's like a time to go. The kids are out of school, flights are cheap, relatively cheap. And I know maybe things probably come up. How's that between what you get?
Yeah, the trips are cheap. People want to travel again. So we've definitely had the issues of parents disagreeing over it being safe for kids to travel during COVID times, and especially because a lot of kids are not vaccinated. So that's an issue I've been dealing with frequently and having to deal with parents not being in agreement and having to figure out how we're gonna work through that.
Another thing I know, people have gotten there's talks of a sports stimulus package, except I think like one senator is Democrats is like doesn't want to do it, like so. But people have gotten it. I know couples that got it. Because the IRS is maybe sometimes slow to adjust the marrying, filing jointly, separate, and divorced, and people are getting like what, one check or one direct deposit. I know that's come up, right? Especially when a few posts. How do people handle it?
Yeah, so there hasn't been any actual law or legal guidance, but for the most part, if people have shared custody, we've been telling them to split the stimulus checks for the kids. If one parent has full custody, then they should get the stimulus check for the child. But yes, we've definitely had trouble with people withholding those checks, or the checks go just to one address, the old marital address, and that person doesn't share the checks with their spouse. So we've had to get involved and deal with a lot of that too. So there's always a new challenge that the law hasn't prepared for. So now they probably have to make a law on that too.
All right, speaking of new things, let's go to the new news today. Let's see. This is an interesting one from CNN. Creating a stress-free divorce for your kid, or getting as close you can. Mom said they were splitting up because dad drank too much. Dad said mom was having an emotional affair and was spending too much money. Dad said, so this is argument before. That's what two siblings, a teenage girl and boy, told me as I worked with them to process the impending divorce of their parents. They were upset, not just because their nuclear family would be forever changed and their future more uncertain, but because their parents were oversharing and trying to pit them against each other. The kids were overwhelmed and confused. They were unsure where to place their alliances, but wanted nothing to do with alliances in the first place. They wanted to envision their family not as a failure, which many kids of divorce feel. They wanted family time to feel well spent. They wanted to hold on to good memories they experienced and look forward to a future that felt more connected than awkward. Though they might not always show it, divorce can be traumatizing for kids and affect other areas of their lives, including great social connections, even the partners they choose and how they treat them. Difficult as this may be to do, creating positive post-divorce family culture falls squarely on the shoulders of the parents. This on top of their own processing of feelings around separation, divorce, loss, and hope. It's a lot to have to take at once. especially even with post, I guess, COVID. Um, it's
Yeah,
difficult. I can't imagine.
that's true. It's a lot to manage. You're dealing with your own emotions, the loss of a relationship, you're going through a divorce. There's probably some financial hardship with that. And then on top of it, you have to try to protect your kids from the situation. And it's a lot for anyone to handle. And so that's why, I always recommend outside resources. Never be embarrassed to call a therapist or somebody that you trust to help you get through the situation. You don't have to do this alone. There are so many resources out there, and you just need to take advantage of them because trying to do it alone is just a recipe for burnout and making things too hard on yourself. It takes a village, and that village is out there, and there are many groups that can help you find those connections.
Now, this is interesting from people.com. Have you ever done like a royal divorce, or you don't have, they don't have it here. They
I
haven't used it.
wish. No,
You, okay,
we
this is
don't really
interesting.
have royalty, just unless you count celebrity royalty.
Yeah, that's our royalty. Okay, so let's break this one down. So Queen Elizabeth's grandson Peter Phillips finalizes divorce from wife Autumn. This is a sad day. So Princess Anne's son is the first of his generation of royals to separate from his spouse. Queen Elizabeth's eldest grandson Peter Phillips and his wife Autumn have gone their separate ways after the couple announced a separation in February 2020. Peter and Autumn put out a statement on Monday saying the financial aspects of the divorce have been resolved and approved by the High Court. Willis, this is a sad day for Peter and Autumn. They continue to put the well-being and upbringing of their wonderful daughters, Savannah and Isla, first and foremost. They said in a statement, both Peter and Autumn are pleased to have resolved matters amicably with the children firmly at the forefront of those thoughts and decisions. They added Peter and Autumn have requested privacy and consideration for their children as their family adapts to the new chapter of their life. So what's interesting is Princess Anne's son, 43, is the first generation of royal to separate from his spouse. So this is kind of, I assume there's some prenup settlement or.
I'm sure there's some rules that apply to royal divorces, although it is interesting that he's the first of the generation. I mean, because divorce is so common these days, but maybe it's not in the royal family. I don't know. Um, but I'm sure there's got to be some protections for the crown and like what happens if you divorce a royal. But there's probably also a lot of protections for the ex-spouse whose lifestyle is going to change a lot. So, um, I mean, Diana and Charles got divorced, so it happens, but it's, yeah, I don't think it's that common with the royals because they have such a persona they have to keep up. And I mean, it's probably a little different now with the whole, like royals moving to the US and Harry and Meghan stuff. But um I think before that and most of the older royals and most of the other royals probably want to keep up the appearance of, the very elite um functional family.
Yeah, I assume if they get divorced, they're not going to live on the street. Like they're not going to throw them on. They're going to get some house or
Oh, I'm
some
sure.
allowance.
That wouldn't
All
be
right.
very good press to throw them out on the street.
Okay. So Rob Riggle, I don't know if you like you watch his shows. He's like a comedian. So this was interesting. So on page6.com, Rob Riggle accuses a strange wife of spying on him with hidden cameras. Rob Riggle accused his estranged wife, Tiffany Riggle, of spying on him with a hidden camera and hacking into his Apple account. TMZ report on Monday, the actor 51 claimed in court documents obtained by the outlet that he and Tiffany were staying at separate houses. And when he began to notice that she was privy to private conversations he'd had in the office of his home. He alleged that she and other anonymous sources would text him or email him referencing information from the conversations. Rob also believed that Tiffany had hacked into his Apple account to download his emails, texts, and contacts and photos. As a result, the Saturday Night Live alum reportedly, he and his unidentified new girlfriend began to plant false information to see if it would come back to him. After it did, he had his home swept for devices in April, and a spy camera was allegedly found hidden in his smoke detector. Rob claimed the memory card in the camera had over 10,000 videos, with sound leading him to believe that it had been installed around August 2020. The 21 Jump Street star alleged that one of the videos showed Tiffany standing on a ladder to install the camera. He claimed that another clip showed her sitting on the floor of his home office and counting money. After $28,000 of his emergency funds went missing, Rob was granted a temporary restraining order against Tiffany, and they're due in court in July. Tiffany filed for divorce from the comedian in October 2020 after 21 years of marriage.
Wow. Well, it's actually not that weird of an allegation to hear that someone is spying on someone with security cameras. I'd say that happens in a lot of my cases. Um, People frequently have security cameras in their homes. Usually both spouses would know about it, but not always. And, so the spouse who's unhappy about it, the question is, did they know about it? Did they have an expectation of privacy in their home because they may have known that there were security cameras? So it's actually pretty common that someone keeps the password and spies on the other person, or at least that's an allegation made, because it does happen. And it's an easy way to see what your ex is doing.
So, okay, here we go. This is an interesting one from Bloomberg.com, how Bill and Melinda French Gates are dividing $148 billion fortune. Let's see how long this one is. So the divorce on paper sounds common enough. The years go by, the kids grow up, the couple drifts apart, the marriage, they fully tell a court, has become what's this word? Irretrievably broken. Okay.
Irretrievably.
Yeah. But that's where the familiar outlines of many a breakup end, because this one concerns Bill Gates and Melinda French Gates. In financial terms, is a split for the ages, entangling their combined fortune after 27 years of marriage is a colossal undertaking. Their mansion and private jets. Let's skip here to the good part. They're probably about the biggest divorce imaginable, said Janet George, a family attorney at McKinley Irvin. The work has already been done, starting with a separation contract. According to the petition of divorce, French Gates, 56, filed in their longtime home of Washington. She signed the papers from Bellevue, where they have a sprawling $130 million lakefront mansion. Bill Gates, 65, signed from Palm Desert in Southern California, where they own another home. Oh, they have a whole chart here. Let's just sum it up a little bit. Representatives for the pair declined to comment on the divorce, and where they had a prenuptial agreement, but a prenup, if there is one, wouldn't matter because the separation contract supersedes any previous agreement. They have already been more than $3 billion worth of transfers from Cascades Investment, also known as Bill and Melinda Gates Investments, to French Gates, a sliver of their $145 billion fortune at the time of the divorce announced.
Wow.
The divorce has already cost Gates some of that image with reports of infidelities tied to the late pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, and coverage that his money manager, Michael Larson, operated a toxic work environment. Let's just stop there. So this is like dividing a country in a way.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. I mean, it's the same rules as people who have less money. It's just that you each end up with a large portion of a really large estate. So obviously they're both going to be fine and end up with plenty of money. It sounds like it's mostly cooperative. They're not necessarily in court battling over everything. And it's really just a question of how do you divide the assets fairly? There's obviously plenty there to go around. So you just want to make sure people end up with, enough assets and similar assets so that they don't have different tax consequences and things like that.
Oh, the rich never pay taxes anyway.
Sounds like there's plenty of houses too for each of them to live in.
Yeah, $100 million lake. I think you own the lake at that point.
You might.
So, speaking, we were talking about Hawaii and cheap plane tickets. So what's interesting here is MauiNow.com. It says here, divorce law in Hawaii program now on Zoom. The family court's divorce law in Hawaii program celebrates 250th session by announcing that anyone seeking information about divorce in Hawaii may now access the program on Zoom. Previously, the free seminars were available only on Oahu at Family Court in Kapolei and the Supreme Court in Honolulu. So Supreme Court courtroom in Honolulu. Due to the pandemic, we canceled in-person meetings and used Zoom, said Tracy Wilt-Jen, the Mediation Center of the Pacific's executive director. We did some testing earlier this year and we're delighted with the results. Wilt-Jen reports that before the pandemic, up to 12 participants attended each session. In the past few months of Zoom testing, participation has more than doubled, with people joining from the neighboring islands for the first time in the program's 20-year history. We're extremely happy that attendance for the divorce law presentations has increased so significantly since we began broadcasting remotely, said attorney William Dara. Divorce is one of the hardest things a human being will ever go through. It tests a person in ways that they've never been tested before, presenting great opportunity and great peril. I'm proud that divorce law in Hawaii continues to provide couples with the tools they need to successfully navigate this extraordinary, challenging process. Now, no matter how well it is done, going to court is very expensive and risky. I consider litigation as the option of the last resort. Divorce mediation is an alternative most couples should consider first. I'm grateful that the Mediation Center of the Pacific is our partner. This program gives couples practical guidance on the law and divorce process and ways to resolve differences peacefully. So this Zoom thing is just, it's like, I think people like it enough where like, hey, we're just going to continue this perpetually. Is that
I
an
hope so. I know there's some talk here of not continuing it, but I hope they do because it really, it really helps a lot of people be able to take care of their court business a lot faster. It helps, save a lot of time and attorney's costs for people to have their lawyer go to court. For people like in my situation where I have a broken knee, it makes life a lot easier because you can still do your court appearances. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of positives to it. Just on a side note, it's so hard to imagine like being depressed in Hawaii, even if you're going through like a divorce or going to court. It's so beautiful. I'm sure it's very difficult. I'm just saying, like, you walk outside into the sunshine and see a rainbow, and it's like at least you have that,
I know, especially like if you're like an attorney there, it's like
can you imagine?
Probably to go to court in sandals or something.
Right? You probably get to wear flip-flops. I know it's like how I never see lawyers in California wearing like stockings or pantyhose. And I'm sure in other parts of the country that's just like, I can't believe they don't wear pantyhose, but it's so hot here. Like we don't do it.
Yeah, I feel like we've gone through so many things already, but we're only on the first part of the podcast here. So let's get to the second part where it's called Dear Emily, where people post, and ask Emily advice on child custody, getting started in the process. Yeah, I feel like I've been reading the whole time, but let's read some more. So this one is a child custody one. Long story short, my husband left me 6 months ago. I didn't know at the time, but there was another woman in the picture, and I know for a fact he must have been seeing her for at least a year. I have a 21-year-old, an 18-year-old. The 18-year-old son lives with me. My ex was a covert narcissist and was abused emotionally, as were my boys, the full extent of it. Doing research as to why I feel the way I do, I only realized there's an actual name for it, and I wasn't crazy at all. Since he's been gone and I'm free from fear, kind of. He said he wanted to go out, and within a few weeks he was gone. And didn't look back. A month later, he was living with his new chick, which is fine. I'm over it. Not the issue. Since leaving, he's seen my 18-year-old 3 times in 6 months. Once for 20 minutes to play basketball. Second, same thing, where he told him he was seeing someone. He asked him if he wanted to meet her, and my 18-year-old son said no. Next visit was to the house for dinner, where my 18-year-old found out it was him and his new woman for dinner, and they were living together. They kissed and hugged and a lot of things in front of him, apparently, and he said he found it disturbing. Go down here. But now the ex, who could never do anything wrong, and anything bad that ever happened to him was my fault, is messaging him nonstop, offering to buy driving lessons for him. I'm teaching my son myself, so it doesn't cost anything. I feel this is his way of manipulating the situation. He's finding himself in. If you treat your kids like dirt, eventually they don't want to see you. I've told him for years how he treats his kids. He might not have a good relationship with them when they grow up. I know what's coming. This will be all my fault very soon. I would love to ignore his test completely, but kind of feel this is a jerk move because we do have the boys together. I guess I'm scared of what's coming. I also feel so bad for my ex. It's heartbreaking to see his own son treating me this way, but I also kind of feel proud of my son for finally standing his ground. Advice appreciated. How do I handle being my ex's scapegoat for all this? Can I just ignore his calls and texts?
Wow, that's really tough. I don't know if there's one right answer. I mean, the kids are older and grown, so there's no custody issues, and so it's like they don't really need to have a connection anymore, the parents, but of course you do, because even when your kids are grown, you still always will need to be discussing them to some degree. So I think that, that person needs to find a way to be able to stand up to their ex and not feel like a scapegoat and not feel like they're always getting, beaten up emotionally, because even though the kids are over 18, like I said, they're always going to have a relationship with each other because they have kids together. And you want to be able to go to your kids' weddings together and their kid, your grandkids' birthday parties and things like that. So they really need to find a way to communicate. And it has to be a way where one isn't bullying and the other's not resentful.
Okay, this is our last post. It's the first, the second, and last. But this is a good one. So this one's splitting medical insurance. So it's, does unreimbursed medical include the premiums? I pay about $2,000 a year per year for my son's medical and dental insurance through my employer. If we have a 50-50 split, no child support, isn't my ex still responsible for some of the costs? Calculations were completed in court to determine child support. It was a 49-51 split. Any thoughts?
Well, I'm not quite clear on if they're asking, like, would there be child support if there's a 49-51 split, or what it would be. But child support is basically dependent on your income and your custody percentage. And there's a few other things that go into that too. But a lot of people think that if you have over 50% custody, you don't have to pay child support. But it's like a sliding scale with the income. So you may have 75% custody, but your spouse doesn't work, so you do still have to pay child support. It's less, but you still have to pay it. So it can be calculated on a 4951 timeshare, but there still may be a spousal support obligation. 50/50 doesn't automatically make there not be child support. There's a formula and a calculation, and we put all the numbers in, and it tells us what the state guideline is.
Just like anything else,
Yep.
like a computer does everything.
Yep.
So eventually you put a text in, and then I guess you can get divorced, like Uber of divorce. I don't know. Who knows?
One day, divorce by text.
All right. With that said, that's our show for today. Emily, I know we were talking about the Uber text. Any closing thoughts here on
I just
summer?
think, well, I think COVID made the courts make a lot of changes to try and make things easier for us to and more streamlined. So I'm hoping those stay in place and we can take advantage of them. And things are pretty busy. Well, people are busy with their kids in summer, but things are also busy in the courts this summer because of COVID delaying everything. So I think we're going to still see a pretty heavy case flow, whereas usually in summer it's a little bit slower.
Okay, so we'll see everyone next week on the Life After D podcast. We'll tune in and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.